Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to the Game Dojo. This is 24K movies, reviews, TV shows, and video games. It is another October's Eve, and you are here in the Game Dojo, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? I have... Wait a minute. Hello. Yeah, man, I'm kind of in the middle of it right now. I'm online. Well, yeah, I already have a werewolf movie. Who says I can't have two? Bro, it's Halloween. You can have two werewolf movies. You can have three. Hell, I'll throw Underworld in here if I want to. Yeah? Cool beans. Alright, man. Sit back, relax with your favorite bag of snacks and enjoy these tracks. Alright. I'll see you after. Cheers. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. As you can tell, you are treated today to a bonus werewolf cinema, and not to impugn Silver Bullet in any way, shape, size, or form, but when it comes to werewolf movies, there's only two that come to mind that are the granddaddies of werewolf movies and scared the living shit out of me as a child. Number one is American Werewolf in London. Number two is The Howling, and the same special effects creature creator and master of horror Rick Baker and his team worked on both of those, so it stands the reason why the transformations and the werewolves are on point. But we are talking about American Werewolf in London. We may give y'all The Howling. Stay tuned. You may still get The Howling. That is one of my favorites. But today we're talking about American Werewolf in London. Now, if you guys have not seen this, I don't know what rock you've ever been under, but I've been seeing videos on YouTube lately where people are just like, I've never seen American Werewolf in London. This is my first time I've ever seen American Werewolf in London. And they are blown away by not only the special effects, which are non-digital. That's right, they are non-digital, baby. Non-digital. We were in a different time frame when we did this. You're talking about practical in ways you have never dreamed of.
And I really wish today they would use more practical effects because they look a hell of a lot better than what they're doing now.
That's the Game Ninja. The Game Ninja's fan hosted today, the Nightmare Creature. If you guys couldn't hear her in the background, that's who she is. She's on the other side of Jumbo the Clown Mask. So, this is one of those stories that you have to see to believe it. Now, this werewolf does not look like a big dog, as we're used to in common cinema, nor does it look like the 2-foot standing werewolf from The Howling. Now, having said that, most of the all 4-on-4 werewolves that I've ever seen in my entire life, they're big dogs, and they're not scary. This motherfucker is scary. That picture does not do him justice at all. And the funny part is you're really not treated to him until
in the
10 minutes.
Middle-ish of the movie. 10
minutes in the beginning you get a flash of him, and then later on you don't really see him until the middle of the movie. But the story is Jack and David, they're backpacking through Europe, which already sounds suspect because if you've seen those Hostel movies, well, that's off the board. But they're backpacking through Europe, and these guys happen to come along and stop at a place called the Slaughtered Lamb, a bar that you have no business going into, but it's called the Slaughtered Lamb. And I want to pause there for a second because the people of the Slaughtered Lamb, there is a place reserved in hell for these people because these people knew what was going on. That's why they all gathered into the bar for safety, and this is where they stay during the full moon. They knew full well what was going on, and they did nothing to help these boys.
Didn't even take them for a ride or anything to where they needed to be so they can get there safely.
So the boys are in the bar, and they're talking and they're drinking, and of course mostly everybody's treating them with a mild neglect, but then they mention what's the pentagram for, and everybody gets quiet and they don't say anything, and then it's, no, you can't eat your food here, you guys have got to go, and then they tell them stick to the road, stay clear of the moors, which is fucked up. You sent them out there to die. And one of the ladies who's behind the bar patron says, we have to do something, we can't just send them to their deaths. And it was like, it's not our affair. Y'all know. It's probably one of y'all. It's probably the dude that sweep the floors or the guy that kill the chickens to make the fried chicken in the back. Y'all know who it is, and y'all did nothing, and that kind of pisses me off. But of course, David and Jack are not without blame because these two dumb idiots are walking along and they're not paying attention, and of course they walk right off the road and they're on the moors, where they're treated to the first howling sounds. And this iconic werewolf howling sound is the frightening reminder of why this movie was so on point. I don't know what sounds they blended together to get this werewolf howl, but it is the iconic werewolf howl from any movie I've ever heard in my entire life, to the point where it still sends shivers down my spine, makes my nipples hard, makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck. It is a eerie howl, and I don't know what sounds they combined together to make it, but it's frightening. So anyway, it's at this point that they realize that they're going, and this is not going to be a verbatim. We're going to skip back and forward. This is not going to be a verbatim review. We never do verbatim reviews. So as they're literally decide to turn back and go to the slaughtered lamb, they realize this thing is now closer. You can hear the growls, and it's right where they are, and it's circling them. So unfortunately, we know something is about to happen, and this movie hits the gas pretty fast. It really does. So as they're walking faster, they decide that they're going to stop and double back again. So they just keep making the same circles over and over again. They're going nowhere, and the thing is closing in on them. So David falls down a gopher hole and falls back, and then they're laughing and joking, even though they hear this thing there with them. I don't get the laughing and joking because shit got real. So as he reaches down to pick up David, of course he is attacked by this werewolf, and he is freaking shredded. And David's first instinct, which I tell you guys, I am a patron of realism. If you act real, if there is real reactions in the movie, and I feel it much more. If it's something I would do, I see it. The first reaction David has is to bounce on his boy. Look, no judgment for David. He bounces on his boy, and he starts to run. Then he catches himself as he hears his friend screaming in pain because his friend is being torn apart, literally, and they show it to you. They do not shy away from the viscera and the blood effects and the gore in this movie. This movie is full on. This is full on. This is a werewolf movie. This is no Twilight. This is no Underworld. This is a werewolf movie, and you are going to see werewolf things. So, of course, he decides to turn back and go help his friend out, but at this time, Jack is shredded. He's shredded meat on the ground, throat ripped open. He's bloody. He's a bloody mess. He's shredded. And I would put the image, but I'd probably get gigged by YouTube, so I'm not going to do that. So we're just going to talk about it. And, of course, now the wolf has a second meal because he's done with Jack. So now he jumps on David, he scratches him in the face and bites him, and then you hear a gunshot. And finally, the people from the bar made their way out to help these guys. And then you look over and you see the naked guy who was the werewolf laying on the ground, and then David turns over and sees his friend, and then he passes out, and then he wakes up in a hospital. And this is where the American Werewolf in London starts, because he's no longer out in the countryside. He's now in London in a hospital. He's treated to the fact that Jack has died and his body's been sent back to America. It's something he thought he saw, but they basically tell him this because the police want to talk to him. They're trying to figure out what happened because these beautiful patrons in the bar decide to just dump him in London in a hospital, knowing full well he's bit and he's infected. Once again, they could have killed David right then and there. No werewolf, the curse over. But they didn't. They knew he was bit, and they dumped him in London so that this whole saga could unfold.
To unleash all his hell on those poor people.
I would beckon to say that these people are responsible for this entire event, and it could have been prevented. If they would have let Jack and David stay in their bar, that would have been prevented. He would have went off and ate lambs or sheep or something like that. And damn sure, after the fact, since they didn't protect them, they could have killed David and stopped it right there, but they didn't. And they knew full well what was going to happen. So here we go. And here's how the story revs up. David wakes up. He's not in the best of shape. He hears about his friend. He's trying to tell them he's having these weird nightmares, these crazy things. And when you talk about disturbing imagery, we're not talking about Pennywise in the new movie just dancing and laughing. We're talking about really disturbing energy. One of the dreams he has is that there are Nazi German werewolves with machine guns blowing away his family. Have no idea where that came from, what it meant. It's a total mind screw, and it does very well. It does very well. So of course there is this nurse that David starts to talk to, and she's easy on the eyes, so he kind of likes her, and she kind of digs him too. And he's telling her about his dreams and everything else and crazy.
Let's just say she's extremely hot.
So they develop a little chemistry until David is well enough to leave the hospital, but he has no place to go. So she invites him to stay with her on her flat, which, let's just face it, if you're backpacking through Europe and you come across a bomb beautiful nurse and you're being invited back to her house to live and stay with, that is a dream. But that is where the dream ends, because David, my friend, is now starting to see his friend Jack, and Jack is decaying. And every time you see Jack, he is in a much more worse decaying state. I can only imagine the smell by what he looks like. They did such a great job that I can picture the smell of what he smells like.
It probably smells like old tires.
So of course, he's telling David, you have to kill yourself. If you don't kill yourself, you're going to kill other people. There's a full moon coming, and you will hurt people. You'll kill people, David. Like, trust me. I'm doomed to walk in limbo until the curse is lifted, and everybody you kill will walk in limbo with me until you die, until the bloodline is severed and you're dead. This is not going to end. So he tries to talk David into killing himself, and of course David thinks this is guilt, survivor's remorse, because at the Hope, this is exactly what it was. It was survivor's remorse. There's not that he could have done anything to protect his best friend at the time when the werewolf jumped on him. He ran, and that's a shitty thing to do, but it's also self-preservation. And if he kept running, maybe he'd run into the people and he never would have been attacked. But there's no ifs and buts, and there's no candy and nuts. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, but we don't. So of course there's a hot sex scene, and all the soundtracks in this movie have to do with the moon. All of them. Great choice. And we are also treated let me not get there first. So there's a great little sex scene in the shower, and they're spending time making love, and I always wondered if he could have passed that infection on to her through sex. I just wondered, because I always wanted there to be, there was an American Werewolf in Paris, which we're not going to talk about. CG was horrible. They didn't have the same people involved. It was a clear-cut mess.
The only saving grace they had for that movie is they had Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer.
No, that is a different movie. That is not American Werewolf in Paris. You're thinking of Wolf. American Werewolf in Paris was that stupid kid who jumped off the Eiffel Tower and tried to kill himself, and he saw the girl there, and he protected her and saved her, and then she took him back to the house, and she bit him, but she was a werewolf. It was a horrible film, trust me. You did not see it. I would not put Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer in that. You're talking about Wolf. Totally different film. This is American Werewolf in Paris. A sequel to this movie that should not be named or lumped together with this franchise in any way. The CG was overdone. They looked like claymation characters. The transformation scenes were horrible. There was nothing I could take from that movie as enjoyable. And unfortunately, these two get lumped together when you hear American Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in Paris. Strike that one off the list. Here in the Game Dojo, that is a difference between night and day. One is platinum, and one is dog shit. One is below copper. One is dirt rating. And that's American Werewolf in Paris. Sorry to be hard, but you cannot stand in the same light as a movie like this. Not to mention it was decades and decades later they created it. But I digress, walking across from that. So, after the sex scene is done, they have this little love thing. Everything is nice and good, and she goes off to work, and David is left in her apartment. And this just happens to be one of the nights of the full moon. And we are treated to one of the best, if not the best, werewolf transformation scene in history, bar none. It's none of that quick stuff where you burst out your skin. It's none of that quick stuff where somebody looks at you and their face dysmorphs and he turns into a werewolf. No. From the pain, the bones cracking, the skin and face stretching, the nails, the hair, it's one of the most painful experiences ever put to film, and it is one of the greatest. Creature creator and makeup artist Rick Baker and his team, this is how you make a movie. And to this day, it is still the gold standard of werewolf transformations in film, in TVs, cinema, and video games. I will stand on that. And now I guarantee you there is an entire collection of werewolf enthusiasts who watch movies who will jump on that as well. This is one of the best. If you would watch this movie for nothing more than just the transformation scene, you will not be let down. So anyway, as Jack changes, you hear Blue Moon, and they never show us how he got out her apartment. I don't want to assume he burst through the wall, because when she comes home later on in another scene, her house is intact, her door's intact, so I guess as a werewolf he walked out the front door and opened up the locks. We're never told this. There's no way we know how he got out of the house, and I'm kind of glad they didn't, because they figured they'd just leave it up to your imagination. I thought maybe he bust through the glass because he's a mindless beast, but apparently that didn't happen because her windows were intact. So anyway, that was just the one little thing.
Was a nice little werewolf and opened the door and closed it nicely for her.
But he was on all fours, so he couldn't physically do that. But I digress. Let's get past how he got out the apartment. So now we're treated to 4 separate scenes of attacks. The ones where the derelicts and the bums are on the street and he goes after them, that's a pretty intense scene. Like I said, they're very good at building suspense and drama, and they draw out these scenes. There's another one where a man and a woman get home and they think hooligans are in the park and somebody's being torn apart out there, and they go down there to check who it is, and somebody's torn apart down there. But the culmination is the subway scene. To this day, I am petrified to go into a subway because of this scene. And the guy who has his short moments of fame, and you know who I'm talking about if you've seen this movie, I can assure you this is not at least amusing at all. Yes, that guy. So he's in a subway by himself and he gets off the train, and we're treated to not seeing the werewolf at first. We're treated to this camera that just keeps peeking around corners, and there's a very claustrophobic loneliness feel because he's the only person in the train station right now. And bro, I can't tell you how much that disturbs me. So as he's hearing something, he starts to turn around and then he just starts to dip because, hey, you hear some weird shit, you gonna bounce. Like I said, realistic reactions. I love him for this. I love John Landis for this. I love it, bro, 100%. So as the guy runs and he's starting to hear this, like he's trying to look for a way to get out of here, but the sound gets closer and closer, and he just literally stops and looks around a corner, and that's the first time the werewolf sees him, and he sees it, and he books ass. He is out of there. He is haul-assing out of there. But unfortunately, you're in a subway. Ain't too many places you can go. So he's hopping over this. He drops his briefcase doing this, and he falls onto an escalator thinking, man, that's the top of the steps. That's the opening. There's the street. I'm free. And of course he is wrong, because this is the first time at the top of the screen you see the full werewolf walk into frame, and he is huge, frightening. And then of course the guy gets torn apart and you wake up and he's in the werewolf den. I kind of am doing a verbatim, and I didn't want to do a verbatim, so let's just skip ahead, okay? So there is one scene in this movie that I am not a fan of, and I skip through pretty much every time I watch it, and that is the porno movie scene. Look, I get it. They have porno theaters. You wanted to showcase at the time, in a time period, what they had going on in movie theaters. But I think it was See You Next Saturday or next Sunday or something. Whatever the porno movie was. We don't need the sounds and the porn going on in the scene. And it's crazy because it's Jack and the people he killed that are decaying are in the seats watching the porn movie with him. He just ducked into this place because he needed a place to hide out. So they're talking to him, telling him how to kill himself and all this crazy stuff. And it's a little bit of levity and kind of joking. And in the midst of all this, of course, it's nighttime. He wolfs out again in the porn movie theater. And he tears up some people. And then, of course, people start running and they run out, and one runs up to a Bobby and he tells it, that's a cop, runs up to a cop and says, there's something in there eating people. And the cop walks into there. He walks all the way down the aisle until he sees a moviegoer being eaten by the werewolf. And he, like I said, realistic reactions. He doesn't wait to see what it is. He doesn't ask questions. He turns around and haul asses out of there, pulls the wooden shutter down like, shit. The shit is at the fan. It's at this point that the werewolf is now hitting the wooden shutters trying to break through. And as a crowd of people outside who should be smart, who should have common sense, they should be going the other way. No, they crowd around it. What is it? What's going on? I want to see what's going on. And at this time, he calls other cops over. They're holding the doors gate and they're asking like, what the hell is in this place? And it's not long, because as everybody's crowding in there and they're telling people to get back, the werewolf busts through the wood, grabs somebody by the throat, and bites his head clean off. Mortal Kombat full fatality. Head goes rolling into the crowd. Now everybody want to run. Should have ran before. No, now your dumbasses want to run. So now he is out there with them on the streets, and he is snapping and biting, and cars are crashing, and buses are flipping over, and people are getting run over by cars, and motorcycles are being smashed. There is panic in the streets of London, to quote a great song. There is chaos in Piccadilly Circus, and the shit has hit the fan, because now it's not a thing of people doing false reports. He is out there and he is biting and slashing and attacking people, and this shit is going down. It is mayhem at the greatest extent. Like, you cannot recreate this. If they ever tried to do a reboot, I would not watch it. John Landis, creature creator, makeup effects art, Rickard Baker and his team, you guys, you have it. You have it hand down. You have it hands down. So the culmination of the movie goes, there's a disturbance in Piccadilly Square, and the nurse says, it's David. Because at this point, they think he's just a crazy guy. Now, the really crazy part is I don't want to say I didn't really buy the love story between them, because they really didn't know each other that long. I mean, they smashed. Maybe it was good sex. Maybe it was, you know what I'm saying, some good times. And maybe she just caught feelings. But I don't know. Look, let me tell you something. If I met you and we smash and we cool, and you tell me you're a werewolf, and then I hear about a disturbance in the middle of town involving like a werewolf, and I kind of know it's you, I'm going to be hurt and disturbed, but you ain't gonna see me again, baby. I'm sorry. Relationship over. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go to the vet and get tested, or the chemist, as they call him, or the hospital. We're gonna go down there and get tested, because I just had sex with you, and if you out here tearing people apart with some red fangs and yellow eyes, I gotta check my shit out, because I could be next moon. I could be, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, she doesn't do that. She goes down there, and the doctor, who believes that David is crazy, they find him, and the police corner David in full werewolf form in an alleyway. And of course, she breaks through the police barrier, because she's got to tell David she loves him. So it's not until she gets to the end of the alleyway that she actually sees David in werewolf form. And it's the first time she's actually frightened, because he wasn't bullshitting. He wasn't crazy. He was telling you the truth. And if the movie had gone the way that I thought it was going to go there, I would have been so upset, like, love conquers all. But in that state, he is a mindless beast. Ferocious. Pure instinct. So as she says, David, I love you, he looks at her, turns his head, and he lunges with his mouth open. You remember Never-Ending Story? You remember how the Gamorg jumped out when Atreyu said, I am Atreyu! Come for me, Gamorg! I was the one sent to stop the nothing! And the werewolf jumps out at him, which, by the way, fuck you. Where's the camera? Fuck you. Never-Ending Story. That was a kid's movie. You had no business making that werewolf look so damn frightening. That shit scared me and gave me nightmares. Many a night. That werewolf with the yellow eyes and the pointy ears and the lightning bolt teeth. Why? Why? It's a kid's movie. The Love Dragon looked like a big dog. But you gonna spend your highest budget on the werewolf? That was terrifying. And now even gonna get into Artax dying in the swamps of sadness. I ain't over that. I still got tears in my heart. Artax dying in the swamps of sadness. But that's a different movie. So as David lunges at his girl, The police shoot him. And I'm glad they didn't make like the love conquer all and he listened to her because he loves her and David is wasted. And as soon as you see David's naked body laying there, credits. Bomb, 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 ding, 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 boom. Yes, they go right to credits. They don't even give you a chance to process what just happened. Cut, credits, we out of here. Most films piss me off when they do that, but there was no more story to tell. Unless the fact she is somehow infected or got pregnant by David and she has a werewolf child in her.
It would have been nicer than the sequel on that.
I know. The sequel we got is not the sequel we deserved or the sequel we wanted. American Werewolf Paris, that sucks.
I mean, technically, I think the woman is still alive. They could do it where her kid is a grown-up now or something.
True. Maybe in a better world, a wolf like me, she had a daughter and that grew up to be that girl from A Wolf Like Me. But it's not. It's not. So, ladies and gentlemen, American Werewolf in London, the Gran-Daddy, the father of werewolf movies, the gold standard by which all movies are judged. What do we give it in the Game Dojo? It's no surprise. We got another double platinum. Another double platinum. Another double platinum. 2 in the month of October of my highest ratings. 2. This one deserves it. And anybody who's ever watched it, seen it, known it, read the books, saw the story, you understand why. This movie is violent. It is raw. It is funny when it needs to be funny. Drama when it needs to be drama. The practical effects are next level. For the time period when this came out, they still hold up today. They are still amazing today. This film cannot be talked about enough when it comes to horror and the werewolf genre. This is what horror movies are all about. And by the time you're done this movie, you felt like you've gone through something, and you should, because this movie is an assault on the senses. So when you guys are having your parties, when you guys are doing your movie marathons, you can have your Jasons and your Chuckies and your what's your favorite scary movie. You can have all of that. But when it comes time to your monster movies, you got to have your demons and you got to have your werewolves. There are only 3 acceptable werewolf movies for the Halloween season if you really truly want to be kind of frightened or at least unnerved. American Werewolf in London, The Howling, definitely The Howling, Part 1. Not doing any other parts. The Howling Part 1.
And I would like to add one if I may. I would love to add Ginger Snaps to that because that's an iconic horror, werewolf movie also, and they made Ginger look amazing as a werewolf.
But you're talking about newer werewolf movies. I'm talking about classic Gran-Daddy movies.
It's a classic now.
These are all in the 80s.
Well, Ginger Snaps...
There is a third 80s movie that was a werewolf movie that I already previewed on my channel, and that was Silver Bullet. Those are the top 3 werewolf movies from the 80s. Classic Gran-Daddy horror movies that I'm talking about. We're not talking about 90s or 2000s yet. That's further down the road. We're talking about Gran-Daddies.
I just want to add my own one in
Yes,
there.
but that's further down the road. We're talking about Gran-Daddy 80s movies. 80s horror. Practical effects. There were no CG. Practical. Gotta love it.
They didn't make Ginger a CG werewolf.
What year was it made in?
2000.
That's my point. We're talking 80s here. Alright, so she's in the 90s. She's a millennial. I'm old school, bruh. I'm old as hell. You can tell by the gray fuzz and the love. I come from the time of practical. She's practical and CG. So she's a mix of those communities. Mine, like I said, we're just talking about the Gran-Daddy of werewolf movies. The gold standard. I ain't talking about the Wolfman, where you a half man, half wolf, and you look like a Pekingese. I ain't talking about the Benicio del Toro remake, which was, by the way, it was a little bit better, but I don't like the half wolf boy puppy thing. I don't like it. I'm sorry. If I was going to watch a movie like that, then I might as well watch Teen Wolf. No. I'm not talking about somebody who's the family dog. I'm talking about a werewolf. A real, according to Hoyle, frightening werewolf. 80s movies, when it comes to the Gran-Daddies of werewolf movies, American Werewolf in London, The Howling, Silver Bullet. Gold standards. When you get to the 90s and 2000, there are other werewolf movies I'll talk about, but we're talking about the gold standard.
Yes, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, double platinum. Earns it, deserves it. Buy it on Blu-ray, buy it on 4K, buy it on DVD, download it, go over your friend's house and watch it. If you have not treated yourself to a movie of horror standards, this one is one you need to see. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, them classic movies, they're not scary. This is not one of them. If you don't know what you sign up for, you're going to get into some shit watching this movie. This movie will have your nightmares running crazy. It has. So, from the Game Dojo, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, like I was saying, when you're out there having your parties, this one has to be in your lineup of mixes. It has to be. It deserves it. It's up there. Ladies and gentlemen, hands down. Gold standard. Practical effects, werewolf making, John Landis, creature creator Rick Baker, all-star team, American Werewolf in London. A piece of cinema gold. Double platinum here. So ladies and gentlemen, from the Game Dojo, I will check you guys out. Thank you for showing me all the love and jumping into and enjoying these movies as much as I enjoy talking about them. And like I said, there are no bought thoughts. There are no testimonials here that are paid for. We give it to you straight. Whether it's good, bad, ugly, great, horrible, we give it to you straight. We give it to you, you taste it, you sniff it, you like it, it's good, we'll give you some more. We'll give you your fix. Here from the Game Dojo in the heart of Gamer Nation, this is 24K Reviews. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for showing my videos as much love as you have. I'll check you guys out later. From the Game Dojo, we out. Happy Halloween. Don't forget to check that candy.